Hey everyone, before we dive into this terrifying story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It really helps us bring more chilling content your way. Let's get started.
The terrifying secret truth behind Barney the Dinosaur. It was a cold winter night when a small group of young people decided to venture into an old, abandoned television studio located on the outskirts of a quiet town. The place, shrouded in legends and horror stories, was the former set of the famous children's show Barney and Friends. At its peak, the show was loved by children around the world, but few knew the dark secrets hidden behind the scenes. The urban legend claimed that something terrible had happened during the show's production. Local kids told stories of strange sightings, eerie laughter echoing through the air, and even mysterious disappearances. But nothing compared to what the young people were about to discover. The group of friends, consisting of Lucas, Anna, Pedro, Carla, and Raphael, had always been fascinated by horror stories. They decided to visit the studio to investigate the truth behind the legends. Equipped with flashlights, cameras, and a good dose of courage, they entered the dilapidated building. The doors creaked, and the air was filled with dust and an oppressive feeling. The interior of the studio was dark and desolate, with abandoned props and costumes scattered on the floor. The main set, where Barney and his friends played and sang, was intact, as if time had stopped. There was something disturbingly sinister in the atmosphere. As they explored, Anna found a locked room at the end of a hallway. Curious, she tried to open the door, but it was stuck. Pedro, the strongest of the group, gave it a push, and the door creaked open. The room was filled with old videotapes and dusty documents. In a corner, there was a large Barney puppet, but it was different from the friendly version everyone knew. Its eyes were hollow, and its skin was worn and dirty. Raphael, who had some knowledge of old equipment, found an ancient VCR in a corner of the room. Carefully, he connected the device to an old television and inserted one of the tapes. The screen flickered, then began to show disturbing scenes. These were not ordinary episodes of Barney and Friends, but recordings from behind the scenes. On the tapes, the young people saw the actors, small children, being forced to record endless scenes, often late at night. They were clearly exhausted and frightened, crying and begging to go home. There was something terribly wrong. Behind the cameras, they could hear the shouts of a man, probably the director, who forced them to continue. In one of the recordings, a particularly horrific scene unfolded. One of the children began to tremble and faint from exhaustion. The other actors surrounded her, trying to help, but were abruptly pushed aside. Then the man behind the camera entered the scene. He was a tall, thin man with cold eyes and a sadistic expression. He shouted at the fainted child, forcing her to get up and continue the recording. The look of terror in the eyes of the other children was unmistakable. The young friends were horrified by what they saw. Anna, with tears in her eyes, said they needed to get out of there and tell the authorities what they had found. But before they could move, they heard a strange noise coming from the hallway. The sound of dragging footsteps, as if something or someone was approaching. Pedro, trying to stay calm, pointed the flashlight in the direction of the sound. The hallway was empty, but the noise continued. Then, without warning, the lights in the room began to flicker, and the television showed static, followed by a distorted image of Barney. But this Barney was not the friendly dinosaur everyone knew. His eyes were red, glowing with an inhuman malevolence. Suddenly, the Barney puppet in the corner of the room began to move. Slowly, as if alive, it turned its head towards the group and started singing. The familiar Barney song, but with a distorted, terrifying voice. "I love you. You love me." The group, now filled with panic, ran towards the exit. But the doors that were once open were now locked. They were trapped. The sound of footsteps grew louder, and the Barney puppet began to move towards them. With jerky, inhuman movements, Lucas, trying to find an exit, stumbled upon one of the papers scattered on the floor. As he got up, he noticed something written on the paper. It was an old letter, dated years ago, written by one of the show's producers. The letter detailed macabre experiments carried out behind the scenes, involving psychological and physical manipulation of the children to achieve perfect performances. The experiments, however, had terrible consequences. Some children mysteriously disappeared, and others were found in catatonic states, unable to speak about what they had witnessed. With their hearts racing, Lucas shared his findings with his friends. They realized they were dealing with something much darker than they had imagined. The Barney puppet, now just a few feet away, began to sing louder, its voice becoming increasingly shrill and disturbing. With a big hug and a kiss from me to you, desperate, the friends searched for an alternative exit. Carla remembered a window they had passed earlier. She ran towards it, followed by the others. They managed to open the window with effort and started to climb out, one by one. As Raphael, the last to leave, was passing through the window, he felt a cold hand grasp his ankle. He looked back and saw the Barney puppet holding him with a supernatural strength. The red eyes of the puppet glowed with an inhuman fury. With one final effort, Raphael managed to free himself and fell outside the building. The friends ran far from the studio, not looking back. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, they vowed never to speak of what they had found again. The next day, they went to the police and handed over the tapes and documents. An investigation was opened, but the studio was considered a cursed place where dark forces still resided. Authorities decided to seal the building forever. The friends moved on with their lives, but they never forgot that terrifying night. The Barney and Friends studio remained a dark mystery, a place where terror and innocence intertwined in a macabre way. And on the darkest nights, some say they still hear Barney's distorted voice echoing through the air. "I love you. You love me. Let's be a happy family." And so, the legend of the terrifying secret behind Barney the Dinosaur continued to haunt those who dared to remember.